So we're going to finish or continue our topic on pricing, and so it's in Principles of Marketing, and we're moving on to pricing policy and the marketing mix. So the critical nature of price in the consideration of marketing operation is shown by the fact that it's normally the second component of the marketing mix, whether you're talking about 4 Ps or the 7 Ps. It's product, number one, price. Always in that order. Product is obviously the most important, and price is the second most important within your marketing mix. So price is the unit of revenue combining costs and profit at which a satisfactory exchange takes place in a transaction. And then obviously that makes up the unit price. The unit price multiplied by volume equals your sales turnover. So when we talk about policy, we first need to define policy, and then we can move into pricing policy. So a policy is any principle of how an organization operates, how it does something consistently in a certain way as laid down by management. So sometimes it can be written, but then smaller organizations, it's just a matter of learning how we do things around here, the culture of the organization, and so on. So to that extent, they may take the form of or the place of verbal instructions from managers, doing away with the need to be in lots of places at once. So a manager will tell employees to follow the policy. If in doubt, follow the policy. Don't keep asking me questions, that sort of thing. That's what it means. So, for example, very firm instructions may be laid down about opening new credit accounts. If we're selling business to business, we may offer a line of credit. So we give them the stock and we allow them 3 months to pay for that stock. So they could have it sold and pay us out of that money if need be. That's quite common with B2B, business to business. So that's a new credit accounts, but we may have to, because we're taking a risk there, we have to be very careful who we can give credit to, or appointing a new supplier. So there may be procedures and various financial checks and so on to go through. So moving into the actual pricing policy, this is where we have one or more basic rules to guide your price setting. For instance, there could be a maximum price that we figure out through our research. Everything is evidence-based in marketing. So the maximum price above which no one will buy. So as I said, we have done our consumer research and they have told us what that number will be, and we set that within our policy that obviously we're not going to charge more than that or we won't get any sales. And we may also, through other methods, identify the minimum price below which the company cannot sell, will not sell. And as long as there's a difference between the minimum and the maximum, then that's where we have wiggle room for our marketing strategy and so on. So just a little bit more on that maximum minimum. You can see in the diagram, the minimum price, this is below this, it's just not worthwhile being in business. We could stick the money in the bank and make better return and safer return. So there is a price at which, presumably it's a certain percentage above cost that we know we have to make, and that's an absolute minimum. And then at the top of this chart, then we have the maximum price, and we know from our research nobody will buy above this level. So in the middle, when there is a difference between that maximum and minimum, as I said, that's where we can engage in strategy. So we want to obviously cover the cost, developing the product suitable for the market, considering the prices and characteristics of competitive. offerings, considering the needs and wants of target market and its perceptions of the product. If the price is too low, will they think it's inferior quality? If it's too high, are we making a promise of quality that we just won't deliver? So, that's, we have to delicately find that perfect number that both sides will be happy with, and making an appropriate profit considering the opportunity cost and investment. So it has to be worth our while to go into this business. So opportunity cost, you saw, considering the opportunity cost and investment. So we'll just explain opportunity cost. So whatever is sold has a cost, even if you got it for free. So your friend might give you an old phone. You broke your phone and your friend says, oh, here, I just upgraded, have my old one. And you got it for free, but it's worth something. They could have traded it in, and so if you pass it on to someone else, you are giving away that value, even if you haven't paid anything for it. It has a value, and that's the opportunity cost. It's the cost of not having it. You no longer have it if you give it away or somebody takes it. So therefore, the selling price represents more than an amount of money. So for instance, if we're making chocolate or Coca-Cola or something like that, and sugar is a component, maybe we bought in a load of sugar at one stage and we filled a warehouse, and that's going to last us for 6 months. And immediately after we agreed the price around the world of sugar skyrocketed, went up 50%. So all our competitors are raising the prices of their products because they have to pay more for sugar. We didn't pay that extra for sugar, but we should also raise our price, because once that warehouse is empty, replacing it, we will have to buy it at the new rate. And so now is the time, when the others are all raising the price, now is the time we should. And maybe we can absorb some, obviously, and we can afford not to raise as much, but it may be harder to raise it later on when no one else is raising their prices. So that's an opportunity cost. Just because we got a benefit doesn't mean we have to immediately pass it on. It might be astute purchasing and strategic watching the markets and so on. And that gives us a competitive advantage. We have that choice. So the selling price is an amount of money which describes a point in the process of exchange. I give you stuff, you give me money, in which two or more parties achieve satisfaction. So if we're in it for the long haul, which as marketers we really should be, otherwise we're not marketers, we're con artists or something like that, fly by night. We are looking for satisfaction on both sides. Profit is not a bad word. We want to make a profit. Profit is what keeps us in business and keeps all our employees employed. Otherwise, without profit, there's no point in being in business, and all those employees lose their jobs. So within the marketing mix, as we said, it's the second most important element, and it's a strategic tool. It's a tool in the marketing mix. And so it's an important tool for the marketing manager to manipulate within the marketing mix in order to make the offering to the market attractive. So when we talk about what is the value of something, we might say how much, for example, are fish and chips. So in order to answer that question, you need to know what's the context. The price changes depending on the context, and the acceptable price to the customer changes with that context. So for instance, buying a bag of frozen chips and a bag of frozen fish is going to be, you would feed a family for the price of a meal for one in a local chipper, and in a fancy restaurant, it's going to be multiples of that price as again. So what is it? In each case, the result, the product itself is fish and chips. But as customers, when we buy something, we're not just buying the product, we're buying a package of attributes. So in the case of restaurant, it's all about the outlet, so the restaurant itself, the ambience, the occasion, the service, waiting staff fawning over you and making you feel good and making a good occasion out of it. Now, so moving on then, I said, we have the customer has an acceptable price in mind with fish and chips, depending on the occasion. So what are those price expectations? So as consumers of many products, we become quite expert in the price of goods. So we have this notional range of prices in our head, roughly speaking, which enables us to categorize an offer as relatively expensive or inexpensive. So if we go into, for example, the supermarket, now before we go in, we mightn't be able to tell you the exact number that we're expecting to see those fish and chips for sale at, but when we see what they're selling for, we will know instantly, does that seem like a good deal? So in our head, we have this fuzzy idea of a range of that seems normal for that kind of thing. So that's the notional range of prices. So that's the idea of price positioning. And so certain brands we know will position higher or lower on that number scale, depending on how expensive or cheap they are. So we can start talking about a price expectation model. So this is that range, and we look at, so for instance, as I said, high price to low price in this spectrum. So consider a market in which the product range in a market is represented at two ends of the spectrum by product A and Z. The positioning of a new product entering the market at a price anywhere between these A and Z tells the potential customer something about the intentions of the supplier in terms of benefits from the product or service with respect to the products we already have in our mind, that A to Z range. So in the absence of further information, if all that customer sees is the number, the price that this new product is being charged, the customer forms a perception of the product. So they're already able to form some kind of judgment as to what they expect from it, whether or not they're thinking of buying it, and so on. And so we can put this into graph form, and this is the price expectation curve. So we have on the bottom, we have the same range from high to low of these the prices in their mind. And so the normal A to Z fits in roughly here. You can see there from one end of the arrow to the other. Average price is in the middle. And so customers, if a new product comes and it's somewhere within this price range, their demand for information is not that high, quite low, and it doesn't really change. So that's why this line is straight, and when you tag it across, it's roughly at the same point in how much information they need. So generally they want some information because price isn't the only thing they want to look at, but within that range, they all want the same amount of information. But the important thing is, if you go outside that range, that normal range that the customer thinks is normal for this category of product, this type of product. So either we go a much lower, maybe we're launching a new product and we think, oh, you know, if we make it really cheap, everyone will buy it. Well, actually, maybe not. If we go too low, so this is the line of, whoops, money, and maybe we pick a price somewhere along here, the demand for information shoots up because we've gone beyond what is considered a normal low point for the price of that type of product. So if you imagine that you're in the market to buy a new laptop and you know, all the usual ones start anywhere, you know, ones that would be suitable for doing college work, assignments, streaming, the regular kinds of things that people need to do. They start in and around 300 quid, maybe 250 on special times a year and so on, right the way up to maybe 2 grand for gaming laptops and things like that. But suddenly this new laptop brand is coming onto the market and it's 50 quid. You know, it's actually, you know, a fifth of the price of the lowest end. You know, it's a really cheap one. People are going to say, how is it that cheap? How can they make something? So that's where the demand for information is the how can it be this cheap and is it crap? Is it poor quality? Am I going to actually be able to turn this on, or will it like self-destruct in 7 days or the day after the warranty expires and so on? And what kind of a warranty is on it? Because I need a warranty if, you know, there's a risk here that I'll have a deadline coming up and it'll explode and whatever, burn the house down. So demand for information shoots up once the price goes anywhere beyond the expectation curve or range. And similarly, more predictably, if it goes higher than the normal high end of the scale, again, why is it this dear? What am I getting for my money? Why couldn't I just buy a cheaper priced alternative? So again, there's a lot to prove to say it's worth this money because here are all the features, here's some reviews to say it's wonderful. So it's all in that demand for information. So in the same way, it's a symmetrical curve. Whether you go low or high, you have to explain yourself. And that's what price expectation model is all about. Now, pricing strategy, we've perhaps mentioned this before, but you know, again, talking about information. So in the price expectation model, we talked about demand for information. So here we're going to take into account, so information, any kind of information, whether it's on the packaging, whether it's part of a marketing campaign, all kinds of communication, whether it's email, salespeople speaking to customers, as I said, general campaign. That's what we're talking about here. So information is embedded in the marketing mix under the umbrella of MarCom, marketing communications, or the third P, promotion. Sometimes listed as the fourth P, but you know, that's something for debate. So marketers love these box diagrams. You can think of it as a graph if that's, you know, if that's how your mind works, or just stick with the boxes if that suits too. So on the horizontal, we're looking at information to the market. So are we pumping out a lot of information? So going back to the previous slide, the demand for information. Are we pumping out a big campaign, high budget campaign, a lot of communications, a lot of social media, maybe a bit of buzz, maybe doing events and sponsorship and all that sort of stuff? Or is it a low, really organic, we're relying on word of mouth or small bit of advertising or some element of a marketing campaign? And then on the vertical axis is price from low to high. So as I said, it's not just a either or, it's a line, it's a graph, okay? So it can be anywhere along that line, and the information can be anywhere along that line. Excuse me. So you may have things appearing at different places in these boxes, but it's whether or not they fall into one box or other is what matters. Excuse me. Typical gremlin in my throat. Good timing as always. So if you have a company that's relying on practically word of mouth and organic growth, they don't have a big budget, maybe it's a small startup company, somebody starting making their own soap in their garage or whatever. A lot of small companies, they don't have big budget for a lot of advertising. And so low information to the market. They have two choices in setting that first price when they launch the product. Are they setting the price relatively low? So the line here would be the average in that product range, whatever the product is. So that the roughly speaking average typical price, is it going to be on the low end or is it going to be on the high end? So if we set a low price and we're relying on low information, we're relying on that organic growth through word of mouth, maybe a small bit of social media work and that sort of thing, we're looking at either slow skimming or slow penetration. So penetration here is in terms of market penetration. We're trying to get market share. So we're hoping that by setting the price low, more people will buy it. And especially if we know the demand is elastic for this type of product, see the previous notes or video to understand price elasticity, demand elasticity. So slow penetration is when we have low information to the market, and slow, so in both cases it's slow, and skimming is where you charge high price and try to maximize the profit per unit. So you're not focused on getting a market share. You're looking at trying to cover costs and make a certain amount of profit from the outset. Perhaps there's been high production costs or R&D or whatever it is, or maybe you're not sure how long this trend will stick around for, so you need to be making profit from the start because you're not sure if there's any longevity in it. So that, or maybe you're concerned with this is a premium product, and if you don't charge above a certain amount, people will think it is inferior and it won't be valued and it won't be purchased as a result. So flipping to the left-hand side then is whether we have bigger budget campaign, a lot of communicating, a lot of information to the market. And so in each case, it's rapid. So skimming for high prices and penetration for the low prices. So, excuse me. So the components of the marketing mix never operate alone. So while they exist in combination, each component may have predominance. So it's about figuring out what's important for you, for your product, and what's relevant. But they should all be in agreement with each other. You shouldn't have a conflict between the general vibe you're trying to send out and the elements of the marketing mix. So, definition of strategy is the way in which organizations meet their medium to long-term objectives by using their resources in certain ways. So it's very generalized definition, and then that leads into your marketing strategy. So you start off with the overall corporate strategy, and that leads into and informs your marketing strategy. So that is the way in which organizations meet their marketing objectives by manipulating or using, remember, their tools, so you can use or fine tune the interactions of the components of the marketing mix, the tools, to achieve optimum customer service or satisfaction. And so one reason price is so significant is that it is inarguable. It is a number. You can't argue that that number is higher or lower than it is. It just is. And everybody knows that 2 is more than 1, but less than 3. So a product either has a higher or lower price than its competitor, and it's not a matter of opinion. You know, customers can survey what's available and they can pinpoint, are we an average product, average priced product, are we on the high end, on the low end, and they can find that out very easily. One of the most dreaded possibilities in industry or that particular market is a price war. So this is where if we drop our price, then the competitor drops their price to match ours, then we drop ours, and so on. It's, you know, chasing each other to the bottom. Prices are driven down. That means margins are reduced. So the profit per unit goes down. And in order to try and maintain something of a profit, but keep dropping price, at some point quality is reduced in order to cut those costs. Ranges are also rationalized. So that means we say a range is rationalized if we remove options. So previously, maybe a particular product range had 5 options in it for maybe different sizes or whatever, different options. And we rationalized a range down to 2 options. Small and large, or whatever it is. Black or white, pink or blue. And that reduces, obviously, customer choice, meaning that nobody wins, because the outcome is a reduction of competition. There's less products on the market for customers to choose from. The products that are still on the market are inferior quality. They've swapped out ingredients or components for cheaper versions. So, you know, in order to keep dropping the price, it is a lose-lose situation for everyone. Now, finally, so competitive advantage is, you know, in terms of pricing, we have a scenario here. We've got products 1, 2, 3, and 4 on a graph. So, excuse me, let's just read what we have here. So column 1 shows profit and cost. So as we know now, the selling price for a product is the costs plus the profit on top of that, and that equals selling price. So C plus P is that number. So we can see product 1 and product 2 have the same selling price. That dotted line comes to the same on the graph. We've got money going upwards on the vertical axis and the different products on the horizontal axis. So while they are selling for the same price, for some reason, product 2 has managed to reduce their costs somehow, but they have not passed that on to the customer. And so they actually have doubled the profit. By reducing their costs by 1/3, they've doubled their profit in that case. So maybe they've just cut down on waste. Maybe they've made some like lean changes and so on. And now product number 3 has also reduced their costs to the same level, same cost structure, cost base, we call it sometimes, as product 2, but now they've decided to pass some of this benefit, not all of it. They've reduced their selling price to pass some of that saving on to the customer, but still maintain a healthy profit. So compared to product 1, their product per unit is much higher. So it's probably, roughly speaking, 50% more than product 1. But they might have a greater ability to make more sales, so they will make a higher volume of sales. So not only are they making more per unit, but they may also make more overall and maybe outcompete product 2 as a result. So this is a competitive advantage. People may purchase product 3 instead of product 1 or 2 because of the new selling price that they have. And it's the dropping cost allowed them to do that. Product 2 will not make as many sales as product 3, but they will make more profit per unit. And so it all depends on market forces, whether they come out with overall similar profit or not. But now, totally different, blowing everybody out of the water with a totally new product is product 4. Much higher cost base than product 1. They're going for a premium end. So maybe they're adding features or adding service elements to the ordinary product to go for that premium end. So the cost base, instead of dropping it down to 2 and 3 cost base, they have risen a slight increase on the product 1, probably only 10% increase in the cost base. But now, because they can label it and market it as a premium product with these extra features that they have that have added to the cost, they can vastly increase their profit on each product and making far more profit per unit than any of the other 3. Okay, we'll leave it on that for now, and we'll move on in the next to break-even analysis.